Hi guys, welcome to the Citizen channel. I hope you're all staying safe and well. Please, if you are new to this channel, please push that subscribe button. We do everything city, past and present here on these little vlogs, so I do try and inform and entertain, and there's some links on screen as well for Facebook and Twitter where I do post loads of city stuff. So if you follow a friend me on there, I do check every few days and follow and friend everyone back. And if you do get a chance, please have a check out my film and TV channel as well, which I try and inform and entertain on there, and all the latest films and TV drama here in the UK and from around the world. So if you can check that out, that will be fantastic. Anyway, hope you enjoy today's feature. Today we've got a moments in time feature where we look back in city history, and I'm going to call this football first. So it's we're going to talk about the bottom clubs, obviously now in the championship, in the obviously the second division, if you like, are automatically relegated. A certain number of clubs, and a certain number of clubs are promoted from the division below, the league below. But it wasn't always like this, of course. This only became into being in 1986, where there was automatic promotion relegation out of the Football League. I mean, prior to this, in various formats of the leagues, a team could stay in if they got re-elected by the fellow clubs in the Football League. So obviously it was very rare for teams to actually enter or actually leave the league before this relegation and promotion thing came into being. And today we're going to have a little look at City have obviously got a history of playing clubs for the very first time, but obviously it's interesting where we play clubs fairly late, obviously pre this 1986 thing, when obviously new clubs after that, obviously there was always new clubs being introduced to the league, some going out, coming back in, etc, etc. But just a little feature concentrating on the first meeting that City have had with teams relatively late in football history, relatively late in English history. So today we're going to look at a team that came into the Football League in 1977, who at the expense of another team, of course, who left us, who never got back in. I don't think they did. And we first played them on the opening date of the 1984-85 season. So obviously they came into the league in 77. It wasn't that long until we played it, was it? Of course, we're going to talk. You've looked at the thumbnail, you've seen the thumbnail. We're going to talk about the first ever meeting, which is in our living memory. This is it. I mean, there'll be lots of first meetings in people that people have forgot all about, or people have far too old or died now who obviously witnessed it. But this was the first ever meeting between, of course, Manchester City and Wimbledon. There you go. We've got their own little history in themselves, haven't they? Before this and after this, obviously, and even recent times. Wimbledon could trace their roots back to 1889. So not too bad. I mean, not too shabby, is it? And only turned professional though in 1964. Had been elected into the league at the expense of Workington. That was it, old Workington, back in 1977. And the meeting with City in 1984 was actually in the second division. They hadn't quite made it to the first division there. We made it a little bit easy to play us by being relegated. Obviously not our greatest period in history, of course. So they just gained promotion for the first time into the second division. They've been up and down at the bottom two divisions, but this was the first time they'd actually reached the second division. They finished second to Sheffield United the previous season. Dave Bassett, there you go. There's a familiar name to certainly City fans of my age, perhaps not so well known to younger fans. Was the Dons. That's what their nickname was for Wimbledon. The Dons manager. The Wombles, of course, is another nickname. We'll call them the Dons. It's far more grown up, isn't it? Although he was the manager, but he nearly wasn't when it comes to play City in this opening game of the season, because he made a switch. Yeah, he made a switch that made. And a stay at Crystal Palace that made Steve Coppell's 30-odd days at City look like a lifetime. Yeah, he sort of decided to join Crystal Palace, and within literally days, I think literally 3 or 4 days after agreeing to leave Wimbledon to join Palace, he'd begged Wimbledon to take him back. Yeah, he wanted to come back. Literally there for 3 or 4 days. Apparently, in his own words, he said he just knew he was just in the wrong place as he stepped as he first stepped into Selhurst Park. He would actually go back there later on, believe it or not. But at this point in time, he wanted back at Wimbledon. They hadn't took anyone else on board, so they allowed him back at Plough Lane, which is where Wimbledon played at the time. So that was Mr. Dave Bassett. Yeah, very unusual. A bit more on him in a minute. Of course, City were under the leadership of Billy McNeil very briefly, which tended to be the case those days. But yeah, Billy McNeil. And we were firm favourites. We just missed out on promotion the season before to try and get back into the First Division. And we were certainly firm favourites this season to get back after missing out. And it's not unfair to say to Wimbledon that, yeah, they were probably amongst the favourites for relegation. It was hard. I say that rise from the fourth to the third to the second to the first divisions is always a bit of a jump, but yeah, they were also favourites for relegation. So you had the promotion favourites against the relegation favourites. So what could possibly go wrong as far as the City concerned? Well, plenty obviously, but usually did. But it wasn't a total disaster this day, obviously. Yeah, a record crowd at Plough Lane. I think the actual capacity was about 10,000. Was fixed at about 10,000 then, and a record crowd of 8,365. So quite a good game, quite a cracking game for the first game of the season. Wimbledon's team that day, I mean, some familiar name, or one or two familiar names. Some are certainly the goalkeeper, Besant, obviously be familiar to fans of my age. Besant, they had a lad called Kay, Winterburn, Galliers, Smith, Morris, Evans, Ketteridge, Cork, Oberg and Hodges, and a guy called Gage was a 57th minute sub for Galliers. City that day, obviously very familiar names to all City fans. Williams, Phillips, Power, Bond, McCarthy, Wilson, McNabb, Baker, Cunningham, Smith and Parlane. And actually Tolmie replaced Smith on 78 minutes. Yeah, just for a summarisation of the game, I say it was, we'll go over to Peter Gardner who summarised the game and comments about Wimbledon, etc. In their first ever game in the second division following promotion the previous May, the Dons rattled City in the first quarter of an hour in front of their record league crowd. The aggressive non-stop home side seemingly stacked with six-footers rocked City from the kickoff, with Alex Williams needing to save at point-blank range from Alan Cork. But when the ball rolled clear, Williams failed to devour a cross from 25,000 newcomer John Kay, and it left Stuart Evans a simple task of tapping in the opening goal. It needed heroics from Williams to keep the Dons at bay in the next few minutes. Yeah, we sort of went all guns blazing at the start of the game, denying Glyn Hodges on two occasions, but when Hodges collected a cross from Steve Ketteridge, City were again in trouble, and Hodges slotted a terrific shot just inside the post to make it 2-0. And the Blues were grateful the deficit wasn't even greater at the interval. Williams needed to dive at Cork's feet in one desperate moment, and Evans chipping a shot just over the bar. But before half-time, City was showing greater determination and turning the tide. Tony Cunningham met a corner from Paul Power and seemed to be the scorer, though it was later confirmed that Gordon Smith had applied the finishing touch with a clever flick on. City were back on level terms when Derek Parlane's constant threatening brought a dividend. The Scot equaliser from a David Phillips cross, which he first chested down. Parlane came close to being the match winner in a tremendous City comeback, his shot hitting the post. Wimbledon lost Cork before the finish, the striker being led off with a head injury, and the home side were grateful to hang on. It was due to the great work in their defence by Michael Smith that City had difficulty in clinching an opening day win, which the promptings of Clive Wilson and the industry of Neil McNabb might have given them. So there you go. So a sort of bit of a tale of two halves, two aspects, wasn't it? Yeah, Wimbledon sat out like a house on fire. Absolutely, really went for it. No quarter given, and as obviously Peter Gardner said, they were obviously a big team, and they were always a big team. Obviously, they would go on to greater and better things, of course. But well done, the Wombles or the Dons, for a real battling display, of course, as I said, which they become renowned for in the obviously over the next few years. Bassett himself would stay until 1987, when he would finally have a bit of an altercation with the about a contract with the chairman at the time. So obviously he ended up going to Watford from Wimbledon. He was actually also linked once or twice to City's. Obviously, as we progressed through the managers, he was certainly in the frame as one of the City managers as well. It would have been interesting to see if we'd got Dave Bassett in as a City manager. But yeah, he was certainly up there with people like George Graham, who always seemed to get mentioned as well when City were after a new manager. But there you go. He was seen as one of the better young managers at the time, and obviously even had aspirations perhaps to manage England at some stage. Not the film, not the Bassett film, England managers, not that one, but the Dave Bassett. So there you go. The reverse fixture, of course, at Main Road the following January 19th, would be a more comfortable win for City at the time. Obviously, we're pushing for promotion. Perhaps that didn't always go straight to plan that season, as you will well be aware. But yes, Baker, Phillips and Smith were on the score sheet for City in a 3-0 win on January the 19th. But Wimbledon, yeah, far from being relegated and favourites for relegation, had a really good season. They actually finished 12th that season. Hey, and things got better, didn't they? The following season, they actually went beyond all expectations and won promotion to the First Division just only 9 years after joining the Football League in the first place. That was fantastic. I mean, it didn't stop there, did it? We're not going to go too much into what happens with Wimbledon over the next few years, but of course, in 1986-87, Wimbledon would actually finish sixth. Yeah, I mean, they actually were top of the league, top of the First Division at one stage. And yes, as you guessed it, 86-87, yeah, City were relegated once again. So they were happily sat in sixth place while we got dumped back into the second division. It's amazing how these things happen, isn't it? But there you go. Perhaps if Dave Bassett had joined us, perhaps if he'd left Wimbledon and joined City, perhaps we could have done a little bit better at that time. But we had a few interesting years ahead, one way or the other, didn't we? So that wasn't too bad. But as we know, so did Wimbledon. Anyway, thanks for joining me for this little moments in time. A look at football first, our first ever meeting with Wimbledon, where people who could remember, who actually of an age to be there and remember that sort of thing. I mean, Plough Lane was a wonderful old ground, fantastic old ground, and yeah, it's still is to this day. It was derelict for a while, wasn't it? But it still is. But thanks for joining me. Say it's nice, these football first, where obviously, I might have 2 or 3 of these. I mean, there's certain I will mention it here. Obviously, Wigan's another one, isn't it? Where obviously we've had plenty of set twos with them over the recent years, and not always turn out well. But that's another one where obviously it's a football first, where we didn't play them till quite late in football history, if you like. So that'll be one worth looking at in the future anyway. Well, I hope you enjoyed this little look, this little feature, our first ever meeting with Wimbledon on August the 25th, 1984, at the wonderfully named and the wonderful ground at Plough Lane. Anyway, thanks for joining me. What we're going to do the rest of the day, have a great one. Look after yourselves, look after your friends, look after your families. More important, let's all look after each other. To meet here again on the Citizen channel. Or perhaps have a flick across, please. If you want to have a little rest from football anytime and have a look at my film and TV channel, I'll try and inform and entertain on there. If you want to have a look at that, that'll be absolutely brilliant. So thanks for joining me. What have you got to do the rest of the day? Please stay safe, as I said. And I always say this to you, don't I? Please, whatever you do, stay safe. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.